Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm sure looking forward to spending the next 35 minutes with you if you've got that time for us. So, as I say, thanks for joining us. Special thanks to Bill Jeffway, who has kind of gotten my slides all set up very nicely for me here. And also want to thank Linda and Stu Hubbard for their contribution of giving this collection to the Dutchess County Historical Society. So here we are. What I want to talk about with you here today is Caroline Morgan Clowes, who is, in my opinion, the best 19th century painter of animals and landscapes. And before I begin, I should give you a disclaimer. I do not have a fine arts degree. I'm not an expert. I'm actually an auctioneer for over 40 years, and I collect Hudson River School paintings. But I probably look at 1,000 images a week of paintings. But in what I'm going to be sharing with you is primarily my opinion. So, and I want to show you enough images that you can come up with and make up your own mind on the subject matter. So, as we talk about Caroline, she exhibited with her records and all, she exhibited from 1862 to 1889. And 27 years. She exhibited locally. She exhibited in New York City, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Boston, and London. She lived her life in Dutchess County. She had a studio in Dutchess County here at her home, and she had a studio in New York City, in Brooklyn, and in Federal Point, Florida. So before we talk about Carolyn, I think it's important that we kind of take a look in general of 19th century women artists and the challenges that they faced. And I'm going to briefly run through that. In my research, I identified 225 listed women artists born on or before 1850. Most of these women artists created still life artwork, and some produced portraits. 35 were landscape painters born on or before 1840, which included Carolyn, who was born in 1838. The works and legacies of most of these artists have not been saved. In the 19th century, many women were not encouraged and not taken seriously when it came to landscape painting. Those that did paint landscapes didn't sign their name, or in some cases just used their initials or a first initial and their last name, so that they did not reveal their gender at the exhibitions that could affect the judges. Being a woman artist was not considered proper in puritanical families. Also, in the antebellum South, it was not acceptable for women to work for money. I'm going to show you an example here of a work of art by a woman artist. And you bring it up here. Here we go. And as you can see, this is Elizabeth Jerome. When she had a good body of artwork at home, and when her mother found out about it, she destroyed all the artwork. She was not allowed to draw or paint while living in the Gilbert home. Eventually, her husband encouraged her, and she studied under Frederick Church in Connecticut. This tropical sunset painting that sold for $38,400 in 2011 looks a lot like a Frederick Church painting. So one characteristic of successful 19th century women artists was that they were raised in progressive thinking homes and supportive families. Carolyn benefited from a progressive supportive environment at Heartsease Homestead in LaGrange, Dutchess County, New York. After her mother passed away, Carolyn was sent to live with her uncle and her aunt Elizabeth at both Hearts in Dutchess County. Aunt Elizabeth's sister, Louisa Amelia Nichols, was an artist and an art teacher, and also lived at Heartsease. I'm going to show you here an image which I love. And this is 1851. Louisa gave these 5 books on drawing to Carolyn when she was 13 years old. And Carolyn writes to her sister Lydia in this January 8th letter that she hopes to learn to draw well. Just to put things in context, Lydia was raised by another aunt and uncle in Virginia. So the two sisters were separated, but they corresponded through their whole life. And those letters, many of those letters are here at the Historical Society. So Carolyn got her education here at the Poughkeepsie Female Academy. And as you can see, this was on Cannon Street. She walked there back and forth to school, 45 minutes to an hour each way. And Louisa also taught there, Louisa Amelia Nichols. And so we take a look here too, when I talked about studios, here's her studio as it existed and it was built in 1872. This is a more modern photo of it on the property, although right now it is restored. If you go by Heartsease property in LaGrange, you'll see this beautifully redone. I want to be clear that by 1872, Caroline was a very successful, accomplished animal painter in landscapes. Letters from J.H. Wright, who handled her paintings in New York City, reveal a painting sold in 1870 in New York City for $200. Wright had not yet revealed that C.M. Clowes was a woman. They assumed a man. He was looking forward, according to the letter to Carolyn, to introducing her in the future to see the look in their eyes. 1872, one of her paintings was being offered at $1,200. So there's a difference there from $200 offering in 1870 to $1,200 offering in 1872. Also in 1872, Carolyn did this sketch and this study of the white steer. You'll notice that the study has this green kind of blotchy background. Some landscape artists that do animals, that's what their background looks like. This was a study for her for this finished painting of the white steer. And you can see it's signed at the bottom and dated 1872, C.M. Clowes, the way that she signed her artwork. This painting is not in the collection. We found a sale of this from many years ago, and we don't know where that's located at this time. In addition to a supportive family, Carolyn was within close proximity to animals. George Arald's farmhouse, he was a neighbor, was right down the street here, and George Arald's large livestock farm featured all kinds of animals. He had cows and cattle, horses, sheep, chickens, and all were within walking distance for Carolyn. Arald's farm was best known for fattening cattle. He owned a slaughterhouse in New York City. The animals were sent by barge down the Hudson River. He was very successful with additional farms in Western New York. One of the things he was known for was his champion steer. And you can see it here in a Currier and Ives print. And this steer weighed over 3,000 pounds. And he took this on exhibit and he charged admission, and it showed up at the 1876 Philadelphia exhibition on display there, where incidentally, Carolyn had a painting as well at that same place. So I want to show you a study as well and a painting. One of the things that George Arald did is he commissioned Carolyn to paint a painting for him that hung over his fireplace, a large painting. And on the left side of your screen, you'll see the study for the painting, which is still, I believe, in the Hubbard family. A member has it in Canada. And the black and white is a newspaper photo of what the original painting, finished painting, looked like. You'll note that there's 2 additional cows in that finished painting. And that is lost at this time. We don't know where that painting is, and we're hoping that at some point it will surface and we'll have an opportunity to see it for real. So another painting here is, this is in a private collection, the painting on the left, and the sketch is in the Historical Society's collection. Both of them are dated 1868. What's very interesting here is that the standing cow is a great representative of what's known as a red and white Durham. Arald imported from Scotland red and white Durham cattle. They were good for meat and for milking. So he was, we know from this that she was studying right next door and painting something that was quite unique for Dutchess County. And those 2 sketches. That is in a private collection, as they say. Next, I want to speak a little bit about Frederick Rondell Sr. Frederick Rondell was her primary teacher. She also had Henry Van Ingden and Samuel Morse both contributed a bit with her. But Frederick Rondell pretty much taught Carolyn through the 60s and remained close to her throughout her life. He did open a studio to teach women in Poughkeepsie, I believe it was 1862. He also painted commissions from Vassar, Matthew Vassar, on some properties and all. And I want to show you his most famous painting. to show the kind of work that he could do. This is, of course, like a 4th of July celebration, and it sold in 2005 for $352,000. And I wanted to show this because I'm going to compare some of his animal paintings to Carolyn's, but I want you to understand where she may be the superior one on the animals in landscapes. He definitely was very much on his own. He has 96 known sales records that we could look at. And here I want to share a slide that shows Frederick Rondell on the left, Caroline Clowes on the right. He was the teacher, she was the student. You can see sketches at the bottom. You can see finished paintings. Now, this is more like the Hudson River School. So these were nature painters that were painting like this in the early 1800s. The focus is on scenery rather than on people. It's not focused on big animals or industry or buildings. It's on the actual views of landscape. The demand for this style declined after the Civil War. The Civil War seemed to have shattered the tranquility of pure nature. And so I look at the Hudson River School was 1825 to 1875 to give it a 50-year window. But for the most part, the Civil War started, the end of the Civil War started the decline of that school. Carolyn provided strict attention to detail in the compositions of her early drawings and landscapes. She tended to follow the American pre-Raphaelite style of true to nature. She was true to nature, and with pre-Raphaelite meaning that you would paint or sketch from plein air, also a lot of light, a lot of detail, and great colors, very rich colors, and this is what she followed. When Carolyn introduced animals as the focus of her landscape, she didn't compromise the details of the landscapes. And in one of the letters from her sister Lydia in Virginia, it states here in the center of the letter, wedded to your easel. And we found that very interesting when we saw it, because Carolyn never married. And so in a way, she was wedded to her easel. And just as a side note, most of the successful 19th century women landscape artists remained single or were widowed. It seemed like marriage, children was not something that would make for a full-time career and in the art world for landscapes. We're going to take a look here at Frederick Rondell's paintings compared to Caroline's. So here's a couple of his paintings that are landscapes and that have sheep in them. And the top one, a landscape with a lot of sheep, a herd. Down below, you've got the Catskill Mountains in the background, some sheep in the foreground. But his were more landscapes with sheep. And then when we look at Caroline, when she does her paintings, it's more about the animals. So you look at the sheep here, you look at the details, look at the lighting, look at the colors, and all of the work in the background, tremendous detail. I'm going to be utilizing this particular slide a number of times in the talk to compare to other artists as well. So then what I'm going to do is whenever I show you two images, the one on your left on the screen will be the artist I'm comparing Carolyn to, and on the right will be Carolyn. So this is Frederick Rondell, his painting with the rooster, chickens, and chicks. And then on the right, you've got Caroline. And you can see how Caroline tends to pull her animals to the forefront. Great lighting, great colors, and a lot of detail, right down to pieces of straw and so forth. And the next one here is the painting on the right of Carolyn's is called The Challenge. And on the left is a domestic pet dog there of Frederick Rondell. So again, you know, you can look yourself and you can see the differences. You can see that they're both very well done. I just loved when you look at the eyes of Carolyn's pets here and the bottom paw foot and just the vibrant colors that she has, the lighting, it's just fantastic. And here's the painting on the right is the one that's known as The Alarm that Carolyn had done. And on the left is Frederick Rondell's view with a bunch of cattle looking across the Hudson River to Storm King Mountain. So again, Carolyn's livestock comes to the forefront, great lighting, great color, and she has to then be very careful with her details because they are so far up close. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through a series of images comparing Caroline's work to the top 4 American painters of animals in landscapes, 2 women and 2 men. The first one here is Susan Waters. And as you can see, She has a sheep painting here that sold for $84,000 in 2003. She was very well known as an animal painter. She is considered the best painter of sheep ever, and that's why I'm going to show you a number of different paintings showing sheep with hers and of Caroline's. She sometimes signed her full name. Many times it was just her first initial and last name. Her 62 recorded sales averaged approximately $9,800 each. So she never lost her legacy. This is the challenge. When we say rediscovering Caroline, Caroline's legacy got lost. When there's several artists that we're going to take a look at that have a good track record all the way through, have a good number of sales that you can look at, and so forth. She grew up. She had 62 record sales, by the way, and she grew up in a Quaker community and married a Quaker who encouraged her to work. And eventually, when he became ill, she supported them through the sale of her paintings. And as a side note, Quakers were known for encouraging women to be creative and independent. Many successful women artists have come from Quaker families and other positive, progressive environments. So now we're going to take a look at some comparisons here. This is the sheep painting that brought the 84,000, and then we're going to take a look again at the Carolyn's one sheep here painting. Then we're going to look at some more, but we'll put them next to each other for a moment so you can take a look and make your own judgment. Again, one of the things that you should be watching for is kind of the use of light, the brightness of colors, and also the distinct details that you'll find in her paintings as compared to, in some cases, other better known, well-known artists. So here's two more. And these paintings of Susan Waters are all very expensive paintings. And what I love about Carolyn's here is if you look at her, the little bird that's up in kind of center right on the top of the tree there, little details like that that she puts in are so distinct and all. And again, the use of light and the colors. Here's two more to look at. Of course, on Heartsease itself, it was an apple orchard, and I believe this is probably apple blossoms right here that Carolyn has done on the right, and the details of it, even the way the light comes through in a couple of different areas and on the animals as well, as compared to Susan Waters on the left side. And here's still another one. And again, the flooding of light on Carolyn's sheep in the center also illuminate the leaves and the vines that are going up the sides of the tree. And again, Susan Waters is good, but when you look closely at vegetation and that type of thing, you'll see that American pre-Raphaelite that Carolyn was adhering to makes hers very, very distinctive. And then here's, I believe, the last of the sheep. I wanted to do the sheep, especially with Susan Waters, because there's articles that have been written about her and all as the best sheep painter in the world. So take a look on Carolyn's painting with the little pink on the inside of the ears of the reclining sheep, the vine going up, the bark of the tree, the bark of the tree. I mean, it's just incredible what she was able to do. And then we have the one cow picture. This was the best cow picture I could find for Susan Waters, and we'll put it up against the red and white Durhams here that we had looked at earlier. And you can see again the detail work and the use of light and the bright colors. And then the last one I have here for Susan Waters is a grouping of bunnies that she did here as compared to the challenge painting of Caroline's. So, and again, I'm going to let you make your own decisions as we go along and you see what we have. The next artist we're going to take a look at is Fidelia Bridges, and she is another well-listed artist, very well known, and has a lot of sales. This particular picture of her was taken in 1864 when she was 30 years old. I don't know how old Carolyn was in this other picture on the right. This is Carolyn on your right of the screen. But in 1864, she would have been 26. So there's a 4-year difference between the two artists. There's a very good chance they knew each other. I'll just tell you a little bit about Fidelia Bridges. After her parents died in China, Miss Bridges became a mother's helper for a Brooklyn Quaker family. She studied under William Tross Richards, a very well-known artist, out of the Philadelphia Academy. She never married, and she signed her works with her first initial and her last name. Another American pre-Raphaelite, she worked a lot in watercolors, painting birds in nature. She exhibited at the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition in the Women's Pavilion. Carolyn's painting was also there, but it was in the main exhibit hall with the artwork of the men. Fidelia Bridges has 102 recorded sales listings. I'm going to show you the one that has brought the most money. And this is Songbirds in a Woodland Marsh, which sold in 2015 at Christie's, New York for $37,500. And then I'm going to show you the only painting that I have seen of Carolyn's that has a bird in it. And it's the cardinal. And you can see the detail, you can see the colors, the light, the brightness, the bark on the trees. If you look at the lower left and you see those kind of leaves coming into from the bottom corner, you can see the change in color right out to the very end where they're turning brown and all. And then we'll put them next to each other so you can get a good idea. And again, you know, there's a difference here when a legacy has been lost and a legacy has not been lost. And I think that's the difference that we're seeing in here, is that well-listed artists just continue to bring great prices because whether we like it or not, there is a market involved in art and people want to make sure they're paying about what they think the market will bring. Let's go and take another look here at another painting of hers. And this one is called Thrush's Nest. And this sold in 2005 at Sotheby's, New York for $18,000. And again, we'll put in Carolyn's picture next to it. And again, you make up your own mind on what you see. But I know that the painting, the Thrushes, is just a fantastic painting. But then you look at Caroline's, which is in the collection here with the Historical Society. It's just wonderful. Next, we're going to move to the first man that we want to take a look at, which is Clinton Loveridge. And if you note there, Clinton Loveridge was born the same year as Carolyn in 1838. And he lived in Brooklyn. He was a well-known landscape painter of pastoral scenes. He's considered a very good painter of animals. He has 130 sales listings that I was able to find. The first painting here that sold, I think it brought 6,500 at Sotheby's in 2007, is cows watering. And you'll find with most of the paintings where cows are watering, they have the cows in the water. And to some degree, it makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to paint the feet and the hoofs and all that goes with it. I do love that little water dripping off of out of the mouth there on this painting. So I also want to go back and take a look at Carolyn, one of her paintings where the hoofs are not in the water, and the detail work and the lighting and so forth is just unbelievable. When you look at this and you see every leaf, every flower, a petal, and so forth, it's just fantastic. We're going to put them next to each other, and I'll give a little more room on the left for Clinton Loveridge. But you know, it's just the difference is the American pre-Raphaelite, I believe, for Carolyn. And now we're going to look at a couple more. On the right, Carolyn's painting. This is one of her Florida paintings. And you can see the vines going up and around the tree with the flowers and so forth. And you look in the lower left corner and you can see that the grasses there have light on it in different shades and so forth. And then Clinton Loveridge's painting on the left, which again, it's a very good landscape and cows in the water. And then here's another one. This is another Florida painting of Caroline's, and you can see in the background, there's cows watering, and there's cows in the background of Clinton Loveridge's also, but they're not as distinct as the background of Carol's. And also the landscape itself, when you look and you're able to see all the different leaves in Carolyn's and the different lighting on the leaves as well as the lighting on the animals. Oh. And then this is the highest priced sheep one that I found, or the best one I could find for Clinton Loveridge. And I put that again with the image that you've already seen before on Carolyn's painting here. Next, we're going to move to Arthur Fitzwilliam Tate. And now Tate is a very, very well-known artist. He was born in England. He came to New York in 1850. He was an accomplished painter of genre and sporting and animal painter before he came to America. He is a very well listed article with 527 sales records. His average is over $40,000 per oil painting. So he's very, very well established with, with his price history and so forth. And he's known for animals. So we're going to take a look here. This is the Trespasser, sold at Christie's 2008. And when it sold for $32,200. We're going to, again, look at Carolyn's sheep here. And we'll put those two next to each other. And, he does have, Tate has some great detail there with the corn stalks and all that. But again, take a look at the detail work and the colors and so forth, the lighting. Here's a great cow picture of that's of Tate's. And, the part that I would say makes her painting better is the landscapes. So again, when I say I believe she's the best animal painter in landscapes, it's because of the combination of the two. His cows here are fantastic. His sky is very good. And, the land is great. It's okay. But look at the detail and the work in Carolyn's. And here's another one with the Florida painting on the right and another painting of Clinton Loveridge on the left. And you look at the foliage in the foreground and even up into the trees and compare that to what you see in Carolyn's painting in both detail and lighting and so forth. And I love both of these paintings. They're just really great grouping paintings here. But again, with Caroline's in the background, you can see those cattle coming forward. They're not just smushes of color. You can see leaves on the trees far back. You can see the red that's running on the split rail fence. The animals are all up front, lots of detail, great lighting, just a wonderful job. And here on the horses, I'm Clinton Loveridge on the left and Carolyn's on the right. Again, this is in a private collection. And on the Caroline Clowes painting. And it's a great painting of Clinton Loveridge, but again, when you look at the details of the landscape portion, like look at the leaves in the bottom left corner of Tate. In the bottom left corner of Tate's painting there, it's not quite the distinction you will see in the leaves and the lighting and all in Carolyn's. Also, I'm sure in the Carolyn's painting here with the two horses, there's a story here that we're not privy to. It looks like the brown horse is about to pick up a parasol, and the parasol is on top of a book, and the book pages are separated by a little group of flowers. And whatever this was painted for, there was a story that went with it that maybe someday will be figured out. So now we're going to take a look at Rosa Bonheur. And when I talk about Rosa Bonheur, I wasn't going to include her because she is known as the best painter in the world for animals. And I wasn't going to include her. I was going to just stick with Carolyn as compared to American painters. But I started really doing some work and looking at Rosa Bonheur, and I really think it's worth us all taking a look at. So Rosa Bonheur, her name was actually Rosa Marie Rosalia, if I get that right, Rosalie Bonheur. But anyway, she's the world's best painter. I just love these. I found this image of a portrait done of her by an artist, and the information is here for you on that. That was done in 1857 with the animal. I wish we had one like that for Carolyn. Maybe it'll turn up someday. But that was painted in 1857 when Rosa was 35 years old. And then the picture on the other side was 1863 when she was 41 years old. Carolyn is 16 years younger than her. So she would probably have looked up to Rosa in knowing her and knowing the work that she was doing. Rosa had no formal training, although she did study with her father, who was an artist. The next image is going to show you her most famous painting, the Horse Fair, that she painted in 1852. And this is on display at the Met, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's a very large painting. It is a lot of action here and a fantastic, fantastic painting. And this was world known back when it was painted and all the way through history as just one of the finest paintings ever. But as a side note, Rosa had to dress up like a man to sneak into the livestock markets of France to study the animals and to go into the slaughterhouses to study animals because women were not allowed in those marketplaces. And she had on her hat so they couldn't, big hat and pants and all that, so they couldn't tell it was a woman. But that's how she learned. Meanwhile, Carolyn had everything she needed within walking distance of Heartsease over at George Awald's. So, and there's a quick clip here. This is the horse fair that was a print that was given away by Lucky Platts in Poughkeepsie to customers in 1890 on the first day that they were open for the season. So you can tell that, well, this was painted in 1852. It still had life in 1890, and it's at the Met right now. So we also know that Carolyn knew of Rosa Bonheur. And if you look at this card, which is in the Dutchess County Historical Society collection, it is a painting, it's a card of a painting done by Rosa Bonheur. And it was Morning in the Highlands, probably Scotland. And you've got down at the bottom, the signature of C.M. Clowes. The same way she signed her painting, she signed this card. So she was definitely well aware of Rosa. Now I'm going to show you a comparison of a winter landscape. Winter landscapes are pretty rare to begin with. And I think that when you look at them, you'll see that this is Rosa Bonheur's. This was her most expensive painting that she's ever sold. It happened to sell last year. It's called the Migration of the Bisons in America, 1897. It's a large pastel painting. It sold last year, 2019, for $773,500. And so it's just a fantastic painting. But I want to show you the only winter painting that I have seen of Carolyn's at this point. And again, they're very rare winter scenes. So this is probably local, most likely very local. But take a look here at it looks like fresh snow. You can see the footprints in the snow. You can see the shadow of the calf over top of the footprints in the snow. You can see the little snow drops and stuff on the sides of the barks of distinct bark of two different trees and on the wall and all. And in the background, it looks a little blustery, but you can see the houses back there with the snow blowing around. So when you put them next to each other, it's kind of interesting to take a look. We've got a $773,500 painting on the left, and you've got the painting that's here at the Dutchess County Historical Society, I believe, on the right. To me, when I look at it, my judgment, and again, I'm no expert on it, but I see the bison, the central bison, is a little more two-dimensional, and the herd in the background is kind of fading away. And with Carolyn, everything is distinct and up front. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of different images, and I'm going to go through them fairly quickly with Rosa Bonheur, because I think the main difference between Rosa's work and Carolyn's work is the landscape background. Now, Rosa on the left here has got fantastic horses. I mean, this is just great. But when I look at the landscape portion of it, it just doesn't pop the way Carolyn's pops, okay? And so when we go back to her horses and the leaves on the trees and the lighting and the colors and so forth, it's just so much detail as compared to what Rosa would put into her landscape portion of it. And then we come, these are two finished paintings of Rosa Bonheur. Both of them are signed, they're dated. And again, I'm showing you that the horses are great, the background's not so much so, but that was her style. And she considered herself a realist, and she was painting animals more than landscapes. And here again are the red and white Durhams of Carolyn's, and you've got these kind of Highland cattle, whatever, on the other side. And very good, just, both of them very good work. Here again, the example of Carolyn's great painting here where they're down by the creek or whatever on the left-hand side. If you look at the brush strokes of the landscape, they just are not distinct at all. And then you have the cows are actually in that grass and so forth, so that it's kind of like a watering cow. You don't have to deal with the feet and some of the things that aren't seen. And then again, we're looking at a quick comparison, again, detail in the background, There's cattle in the background of Rosa Bonheur's painting as well, in the back left side there, or the right side of her painting. But it looks like blobs of white and black because it's not what she's focusing on. She's focusing on the two that are up front. But again, look at lighting and look at detail. I love these. Both of these paintings are great. But again, we're looking at the same painting you saw before with of Carolyn's on the right, with the leaves on the trees and the bright colors and great lighting, and a very nice Rosa Bonheur grouping painting as well. But if you look at the tree in the background of Rosa Bonheur, it's not distinct leaves, and the same in the front. And again, it wasn't her style. And the sheep again, Carolyn's you've seen before. This is the best sheep one I could find for Rosa Bonheur. Now, this is the finished painting of Rosa Bonheur's on the left. It's signed and it's dated. And again, though, it looks more like a study, you know, like Carolyn did her study on the white steer. That to me looks like more of a study. But when you look at the painting on the right with the sheep, it looks like a spotlight is coming right down on the center of sheep. But also the light is hitting those leaves and the vines and going up the side of the tree. And it's just a lot of detail there and great lighting. Again, another signed painting on the lower right of Rosa Bonheur's. And when you look at the tree in the background and you look at the way the leaves are done, the foliage is done on the tree as compared to the detail work of Carolyn's. I just love the reclining sheep with the pink on the inside of the ear. It just is so cool. And the light, the way it hits the base of the trunk on Carolyn's painting is fantastic. So Rosa Bonheur, here's a picture of her that was taken in 1889. And at that time, in 1889, she was 67 years old. And this is a sample of her signature. Now, keep in mind, she signed her full name. She never married. She was single. And she had a big farm. In fact, she brought in all kinds of exotic animals to paint, including lions. She owned lions and wild boar and all kinds of things, and quite a character. But I want to share with you as well, in 1889 is a painting by Carolyn. And of course, in 1889, Carolyn was a lot younger. She was 51 years old. This painting actually surfaced in Madrid, Spain earlier this year. And it came up at auction. I have a keyword sort that I use. I look for Clowes. I do it through Google and a whole bunch of other auction type sites. So on these sites, if the word Clowes pops up on any listing, I'll get it. So I found the painting online, I bid on it and bought it. And then COVID-19 hit. It took about 4 months to get it home, get it here to the States from Madrid, Spain. But very interesting. I had to get an export license. I had to get a temporary export license to get it out of the country. But anyway, we got it home. I got it out to Tom Yost at Yost Conservation, and he cleaned it now, and it's looking good. And I just want to share with you that Sue and I have decided we're going to donate this to the Historical Society. So I brought it up with me. I'm at Clinton House now with Bill, and I'm going to leave it here so it gets in the exhibit with the other paintings when we can get that done, hopefully next year. So the legacy, let's take a look at that for a second. The legacy of Carolyn is still unfolding. It's still unfolding. The letters are still being researched. There's a tremendous amount of letters, and they're being researched. And we have ongoing searches looking for more finished paintings. We know a bunch of paintings exist from the records that haven't been found yet. They're probably in private homes. I don't know how this one got to Madrid, Spain, but she also had exhibited in London and so forth. So who knows? Check out the Dutchess County Historical Society website. There's an awful lot of information there. Candace Lewis did a great talk, and that's up. You can see that. And they're still unfolding, and there'll be more to go. So this is Rob Doyle saying thank you very much for spending the time with me. If there's any questions, I'm going to remain, and Bill's going to be looking to see if there's any questions there. And then we'll
there were just a couple.
There's a couple.
In addition to
okay,
some complimentary things, someone asked whether you think a lost legacy can be refound or regained.
So can the lost legacy be
Caroline
regained?
Clowes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Can it be regained? Well, I think it is being regained. However, having said that, the market, when you see, I come from an auctioneer background, so that's a big difference. The market is not going to respond super quickly to that. I mean, I know what I see, and I know if the legacy had stayed alive, her paintings would bring very good money, very strong money. It could bounce back if a good painting came out or whatever. It could really take off, but I think that's a hard thing to do, Bill. That, you know, to really start from ground zero. And I mean, first of all, we don't know how many paintings are going to show up, you know, and then what would they bring? Now, if the story gets out there, I will tell you this: her page on Artifact needs to be fixed. That needs to be brought up to date, and I'll help Bill with that, and we'll get that done. When people see the listing and they see what she's done, the prices will be much stronger. That's for sure on that side of it. And of course, the Dutchess County Historical Society has brought this story to life thanks to Linda Hubbard. So, any other question or?
Oh, that's good.
That's
some
it.
Complimentary things
Yeah.
and some thank yous.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much. And I appreciate you being on here, and we'll catch up down the road. Enjoy. Bye-bye.